This man is called Sati al-Husri. He is the architect and the single most important ideologue when it comes to Arabism. It's a very important topic, Arabism. So they asked him in 48, why did they lose to one country when there were 7 nations? And he said, precisely because there were 7 nations. They should never have been divided along the lines of borders or religion. They should be united based on language and heritage. They are Arabs, and they should have fought as one hand, not 7 nations. Sati al-Husri argued that the idea that the Ummah is based on religion is not the best way to go about determining independence in the region. The Ummah for him, he called it the Ummah for him, is based on being an Arab, not being a Muslim. According to him, the Ummah is based on being an Arab, not being a Muslim. Furthermore, being an Arab, he defined it as anybody who speaks Arabic. Anybody who speaks Arabic is an Arab. Anybody who lives in a land that is considered an Arab land is an Arab. Anybody who has an affinity to the Arabs, either through culture or heritage, is an Arab. Anybody who's married to an Arab or a descendant of an Arab is an Arab. In other words, he made it so broad that he extended the reach of being an Arab. And on the basis of this ideology, the Ba'athi movement was born. But he was very aggressive. He was very aggressive. He said, even if somebody does not want to be an Arab, so for example, the 𝗲𝗎𝗓 in North Africa, some of the East African, because that's a bit complicated, but some of the East African nations, and some of the, like the Kurds, for example, and the Turks, said, even they are Arabs. And if they reject being Arab, you need to force them to understand that they are Arabs. Okay? So he enforced, you are all Arabs. And the reason why this is important, it expands you can say the scope of who an Arab is and makes the Arab nation, were to be combined, a great nation. So he kept teaching people that you are one nation, Arab nation. And an Arab is somebody who speaks Arabic or has Arabic customs or lives in an Arab nation or is affiliated to an Arab. And there are arguments. No, we don't unite upon Arabism, we unite upon Tawheed. And he said a very strong argument that the Muslims, as Muslims, have never been united as one body. Since the first Khilafah onwards, we've never been united as one body. And if it wasn't possible back then when things were easier, we had less people and we had less technology and less confusion, how is it possible to achieve that today? When we have so many state nations, so many political differences, how can we achieve that unity today based on Islam when we couldn't do it in the past? So he said, it's not viable, it's not a realistic model. Rather, let's unite upon being Arabs. And once we unite upon being Arabs, we'll be strong enough to repel the external enemy and then achieve our goals. Yeah. So his ideas, and again, if you read this, I repeat here, whoever opposes Arab unity on the basis of Muslim unity, in other words, we should unite on Tawheed only. He says you're not using your brain. You're not using your brain. Because we've never been united upon Tawheed only in the past. Whether you agree on that or not is beside the point. The point is, his ideology is what became Ba'athism, which is why in the wars that we just covered, you had nations all coming together, not as Muslims, as Arabs. They came together as Arabs, not as Muslims. Okay, but it didn't go far enough as far as he's concerned, because there were still different flags. He wanted everything under one flag, under one Ummah. He called it the Ummah, under one Ummah, a united Arab bloc, stretching from as far over as you can take it in the east, all the way to North Africa and East Africa. All of these would be Arab nations, which is why in the Arab League, you have Somalia and you have certain northern African regions in the Arab League. Yeah. His definition of being an Arab is actually not far off from, depending on how you take it. There are some ahadith and some narrations from the early generation as to what an Arab is. So the scholars have disputed about this. What does it mean if you speak Arabic, you're Arab? What about the lineage, nasab? So Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, rahimahullah, he said, an Arab has to have three conditions. The language, certainly. You speak Arabic, that's one condition. Your lineage, you need to be born of Arab lineage, ancestry. And finally, land. You need to live or come from an Arab land. Language, lineage, land. However, he also gives narrations from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, one of the early Imams, who said every Muslim is an Arab by default. Based on what? You're praying in Arabic, your deen is in Arabic, and you are effectively accustomed to Arabic culture because of the Islam that you have to take in an Arabic form. So by default, every Muslim is an Arab. Now these are different perspectives and definitions, which can drive quite interesting debates, right? So for example, is an Egyptian an Arab? A Copt, a Nubian in Egypt is in Arab or not an Arab? Some people disagree. Some people say they're not Arabs, they're Copts, and they're Nubian. Is somebody who lives in East Africa who speaks Arabic and Arab? These are questions. Is somebody who lives in North Africa, Tunisia, Libya, and Amazighan, but now speaks Arabic, is in Arab? According to Sati al-Husri, Abu Khaldun, which is quite interesting because he's effectively cultivating asabiya in real world terms. He's cultivating asabiya, cohesion, and he's trying to promote it for the Arab world to indulge in. So his ideas, he's written many books, by the way, and he was, at the time, I'll explain where he fits into the picture. There is a genealogy of Arabism. He fits in very importantly somewhere here. And I'll explain why his ideas are very popular and very, very powerful. The first Arabist project begins with Faisal ibn Hussein. Oftentimes we hear that the first Arab nationalism began with his father, Sharif Hussein. Is wrong. Sharif Hussein was not an Arabist. He was actually an Islamist. In today's terminology, they consider him Islamist. Why? Because he wanted to bring about Islam as a system of governance for the Arabs. It wasn't an Arab project, it was an Islamist project. His son, however, was effectively the first Arabist ruler, and he was put up to the job. It wasn't his idea. It was actually based on British intelligence, who encouraged him to cultivate asabiya amongst the Arabs. It was a British project. On one hand, he was exposed to Lawrence of Arabia, who was an ally and an advisor to his father, and accompanied Hussein and Ali and Abdullah on many missions during the Arab revolt. And he would tell them, if you watch the movie, Lawrence of Arabia, he'd go to the tribes and tell them, unite against the Turks, right? This was his attempt to infuse Arabism amongst them, nationalism. On the other hand, following the defeat of the Ottomans, when the land was divided, Faisal went to Syria. Then the French took over Syria, he went to Iraq. When he went to Iraq, at the time known as Mesopotamia, 𝗾𝙗𝗏 had been in Iraq for many, many years. And she was waiting for him to arrive in Iraq so she can elect him as a leader for two reasons. Number one, she understood that Iraq was now a new nation and could never be united because the majority was Shia and the minority was Sunni. And they would not agree. You couldn't take a Shia leader to rule the Sunnis, neither the Sunnis to rule the Shia. But because he's a Husseini, he's effectively Ahlul Bayt, both Sunni and Shia would accept him. Do you understand? Because he's a Husseini, he's a Sharif, Ahlul Bayt, and in fact, if you go back, he's actually from the Zaydi Shia. There was Zaydi Shia before it became Sunni Shia in the family of the Sharif of Mecca. So he combined two qualities that would appeal to both the Sunni and Shia population in Iraq. Furthermore, he was a perfect candidate to promote the issue of Arab unity. And Iraq was going to be the experimental case for the first nation on earth built upon Arabism. So she cultivated this in him. In fact, she elected him. She's known as the kingmaker. She made sure that the conditions were right for him to be elected as king of Iraq. When he became king of Iraq, she would guide him what to say, how to dress, She was literally a handler for him. He also had T.E. Lawrence as well. So they cultivated him and put him in a position to be the leading figure for what it meant to be an Arab nation. Under him, he had Abu Khaldun. So Abu Khaldun, Sati al-Husri, he was actually born, he was a Syrian, but he was born in the Ottoman era in Sana'a, when Sana'a was a vilayet. It was an Ottoman region. He was born there. However, he didn't speak Arabic until later on. He learned Turkish and French. He also traveled to France. He studied in French universities. He took up ideas about nationalism, came back to Istanbul, and began to work in the government offices. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, he began to work under the Husainids, the Sharif. And so he began to follow, and he was actually an advisor and a consultant, but also eventually became a minister for Faisal in Syria. Then he followed him to Iraq for 20 years. He was the chief minister for education for 20 years. And he focused on two topics: history and adab, history and literature. And he would say, these are the two most powerful mediums for cultivating any form of cultural pride and identity in people: history and literature. And he would approve and check every book. He wrote the textbooks on history and literature. And he would approve or disapprove of any book being taught in school. His program was to Arabize history. So to teach children that all the great heroes are Arabs. But to keep in mind, his definition of Arab was different. It meant speaking Arabic. It didn't mean, for example, Salahuddin in his books was an Arab. Ibn Sina, Khwarizmi, Imam al-Bukhari were Arabs. Tariq ibn Ziyad was Arab. Because his definition was, if you speak Arabic or you live in an Arab land, you're an Arab. And he did this on purpose. Why? To cultivate tafakhur, pride in the Arabs. He is the person who planted the seed that to this very day we hear Muslims parroting in the West. Muslims are the first to do this. We are the first. We're the most advanced people. That using history to empower yourself was something he did. He pioneered that, but not for Islam, for Arabism. He pioneered that. So doctoring the historical record and literature to create tafakhur, pride, national pride in the Arab experience, he did that. So within a generation, he influenced many intellectuals. Two very key people, Michel Aflaq and Salahuddin Bitar. They were both Syrian. Salahuddin was actually Muslim. They went to France, studied in France, came back, got in touch with the ideas of Abu Khaldun, Sati al-Husri, and developed what is known as the Ba'athi movement, the Arab Renaissance, upon the idea that we unite the entire Arab world based on language and culture, not religion, and not even ethnic belonging. That is the movement that made it possible for these Arab nations to come together and to fight Israel in the second, third, and fourth wars. In the second and third wars. Second war was actually not a war. So Arabism was very useful in that point of time, and it actually helped carry the mood of the epoch. From that school, Michel Aflaq is the most influential. He was a mentor, and he considered his sons, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Hafiz al-Assad, Saddam Hussein, they were his children ideologically. And you find pictures of them sitting down. When he's older, they're sitting next to him, especially Nasser was a golden child. And so the ideas that developed in Iraq, in Syria, and in Egypt, we know the very strong Ba'athi governments come from him, Michel Aflaq, which comes from Sati al-Husri, which comes from, ultimately, T.E. Lawrence and Gertrude Bell. Ultimately comes from T.E. Lawrence and Gertrude Bell. Okay. However, unfortunately, when the momentum went, when Nasser died, you had two students left, key students, Hafiz al-Assad and Saddam Hussein. Hafiz and Saddam turned against one another, and they hijacked the Ba'athi movement for their own purpose. They redefined what a Ba'athi was. So now you have the Syrian branch and the Iraqi branch.
Welcome to HistoryUn, the world's leading online learning platform specializing in Islamic history. Discover the HistoryUn mobile app and participate in regular live and interactive seminars and tune in directly from your handset from anywhere in the world. Enjoy instant access to a growing catalog of on-demand streaming content exclusive to the platform, accessible from a variety of devices including desktops, tablets, and cell phones. Connect instantly with our global community of history enthusiasts via our private community forum. To find out more about our online history programs and resources, visit our website today at www.historyun.com.